Hi, I'm Kay of Kay's Creative Home. Welcome back to my channel. And if you're here for the first time, we'd like to welcome you. Today I'm going to be making a pumpkin wreath using this frame from Dollar Tree, these tinsel sticks, and this micro mesh tubing you see here beside me. All right, let's jump right in and get started. Now the wreath is a little discolored. It's kind of orange because I painted it, but the paint did not adhere very well. So I would recommend that if you're going to try to paint your wreath, you might want to spray paint it. I tried to brush on the paint. So I'm going to start by tying the end of this Deco Mesh tubing to the corner of the wreath, and then I'm going to secure that with a small tinsel tie, twisted that on really tight. And the first thing I want to do is cover the bottom of my pumpkin with the Deco Mesh. So I'm just going to go round and round and round that bottom the frame with the Deco Mesh, and it's going to be kind of hard to see because I'm just going over it and over it again, so I'll have enough to cover this area. And once I kind of get it through a few times, I'll stop and smooth everything out so you can see how it looks. And then I finally decided to just go ahead and cut a strand because it was really difficult working with this really long strand of Deco Mesh. So I took the mesh and I extended it to the end of the pumpkin to try to estimate how much I would need to cover that bottom, and snipped a piece off so that I wouldn't have so much to kind of fight with as I'm going round and around the bottom there. So now you can see it goes a lot smoother just to get that bottom covered. So next I'm going to start again by securing the end of my tubing to the edge of the wreath frame. And then what I'm going to do is take the mesh and go under and over each of these little wires in the frame, so that I'm actually weaving this Deco Mesh tubing over and under the wires of the frame. And because it's in a big bunch, it's kind of hard to see again, but once it's through, you'll be able to see how it goes over and under each wire of the frame. If you want to make this wreath, you're going to have to be patient, because when you're starting off with this really long strand of tubing, it takes a minute to get it all through. So starting from the outside wire, you can now see it goes underneath that second wire, and then over the third, under the fourth, over the fifth, under the sixth, over number 7, and then under number 8, which is the outside wire again. And now we get to do it all over again and go back the opposite direction. So I'm going to actually, it's underneath the outside wire, I'm going to bring it over and then start taking it back, weaving it back through. So under, over, until I get to the end again. And now I got to pull this long strand through again. So each time I get to an end, I just kind of smooth out the mesh tubing, making sure it's not too tight, not too loose, and then I kind of push it down toward the bottom, and then I start the next row, and I go back and forth until I'm going to keep doing that until I reach the very top of the pumpkin wreath. So if you enjoy these kind of instructional videos, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with others. And if you'd like to see me make more wreaths and other decor for fall, Don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell because I have a ton of things coming your way. I've already decorated my home, done some dupes from some things I found online at some of the more expensive sites. And I think you would like to see some of what I've created. So I hope you will hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you'll be notified as I release the videos. And so you can see I've come all the way up to near the top of the pumpkin, and from this point I decided to start at the top and work my way back down, just trying to save some time and get things smoothed out. And I started having a little issue with this tubing. It stayed straight when I wanted it to stretch, it stretched when I wanted it to stay straight, and I had to keep just smoothing it out, making sure it wasn't too tight or too stretchy at different points. Try to make sure you work with ease if you're making this wreath. So I've got the entire pumpkin covered in my tubing, and now I'm going to turn it over and make sure everywhere I've secured it with that piping that it's nice and tight so that I don't have to worry about it coming loose. And so I'm just going to twist on each one, make sure they're good and tight. And then I take my wire cutters and cut off all of the extra wire. So make sure, and then I tuck in the ends so you end up cutting your fingers if you handle it near that area. And then I just cut off these extra strands of tubing. This shows all the connection points I had because I had some difficulty working with that long string and I kept cutting it so it has shorter strands to work with. So since I've been working with pearls lately, I decided to add some pearls to this. I thought it would be a nice touch to this shimmer that's on this pumpkin. So I've strung my pearls and I have a glass seed bead in between each pearl. And if you want to see how I do this, I have a link above to another video I did where I show how I actually string the pearls. So that's actually a needle I'm working with there on that strand. And I'm going to secure this cording to the pumpkin tubing, the tubing that's on the pumpkin, by just stitching in a knot. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to wrap these pearls around the circumference of the pumpkin and I'm going to glue it on. Because the pearls are big, the glue will touch the pearls, but the glass seed beads in between each pearl, the glue won't touch them. So they're going to remain secure by this strand here. That's going to hold them in place. So I got to make sure this strand does not break, that it stays in place. If it does come out, the pearls will still remain around the pumpkin, but each of those little seed beads would fall off. So I'm going to make sure it's nice and tight, nice knot here at the beginning, and another nice knot at the end. So I'm turning this around so hopefully you can see what I'm doing. I decided I would glue the pearls to that outer wire, but next to the mesh so that you won't see that wire at all. I started like kind of in between the wire and the mesh. Hopefully, I was hoping that in the end you wouldn't see that wire. And it worked out. So I started just doing it little by little. And I put down some glue and then try to, tap these pearls into place without burning myself. And that was fine. These pearls give you enough space that your fingers don't get, come in contact with the glue. And so I just started going around, adding this slowly. So I wanted to keep that strand good and straight. And I'm going to keep going and you'll see a little bit of what I'm doing. And then as soon as I got to the side, I turned the pumpkin and I went out of frame. So I apologize. You don't get to see me kind of go around the entire pumpkin. But you'll see how, you just take your time, a little bit of glue, and then lay down a strand, a little bit of the strand. until you get it, hold it in place till it's secure. Then you start again. And let's meet up when we get to the other side of the pumpkin. So I'm coming to the end. I still continue to take my time, do a few inches at a time, a little bit of glue, and then a little bit of the strand of pearls, holding it in place each time until I get it completed. With that being done, I've left some excess string. I'm going to take my sewing needle and attach it to the end of that string. And then I'm going to, again, stitch it into the tubing so that I have a nice strong knot to hold this cord in place. And I don't have to worry about my beads falling off. So I have this bow I found in a bin with some of my fall items, and I like this ribbon with this Deco Mesh, so I decided to use it or reuse it. So I'm going to attach it here, but before I do, I decided I'm going to put some leaves and other things behind it. So I'm going to clip off a few pieces of this maple leaf in the orange and in the yellow. And I'm spacing them out because I want the ones that have those berries in between because I need some more filler. And then what I'm going to do is put the two stem, I'm going to put them stem to stem, I guess that makes sense, so that the leaf part are facing out like I'm laying them on the pumpkin there. So I'm going to put an orange and a yellow together. Yeah, and I want it to lay against the pumpkin like that. And that way they'll show up on each side of the bow. So put them all together. I took some of that tinsels and tied them together tightly. And then once I got them twisted together tightly, I still added a little bit of glue just to make sure they were secure. Sometimes these things can slide out of that tinsel or pipe cleaner, whatever you choose to call it. So I'm just going to hold that in place a sec. Set that aside, and the next thing I'm going to do is take some of that Deco Mesh Tubing and make some loops. And I'm going to make two of these. I'm going to just make some loops with some pieces and again take some of that pipe cleaner and twist it around the bottom so that they stay together. So I've got two of those made, and now I'm going to start putting this adornment onto my pumpkin. So I started with the flowers, and it's already got that pipe cleaner on there, so I can take that pipe cleaner and just use it to attach it. And excuse me for going out of frame again. So first thing I'm going to do is twist on these leaves, and I'm twisting them right onto the frame of the pumpkin. Next, I'm taking the loops that I made with the Deco Mesh Tubing, and I'm going to twist one to each side, and again, not twist it, I'm sorry. I'm going to lay one to each side of the pumpkin stem and twisting them onto the frame again with that pipe cleaner. So when I'm finished, you'll see a kind of a bunch of these orange loops on either side of the pumpkin stem. And so the next step is to take my bow and fluff it up a little bit again, and then I'm going to feed through the pipe cleaner through the front and wrap it around the top of the pumpkin and the stem, and I'm going to twist it on as tightly as I can, And then I'm going to shape everything up and trim the edges of my bow. It got a little raggedy, I guess, over time. So I'm going to trim the edges and then just kind of fluff it up, make it look pretty. So I was not able to get a cover for the back from Dollar Tree, but as soon as I get back to the fabric store, I'll get some felt and I'll cut some pieces out and attach it to the back so that it has a nice, clean finish on the back too. So here's my pumpkin, and I thought I was finished, but I realized you cannot see the stem. Well, I got so much stuff up there at the top, I decided to extend the stem a little bit longer. So I cut out this cardboard from old shoebox and decided to just take my scissors and kind of etch where I wanted to cut. And then I trimmed it up, and then I'll show you what I do next. So next, using some hot glue and some brown Deco Mesh Tubing, I just decided to cover this cardboard by wrapping this tubing around and around and around until it was completely covered. And that was just a simple step, and it turned out really cute. It's nice and glossy, and the glue held it nice and tight. So it worked out pretty good. Next, using the same method I did before, excuse the pumpkin, it's a little bit in the way. I decided to put some pearls around the edges of my pumpkin stem, and so I just followed the same thing with stitching it on first to make it tight, gluing on the pearls around the edges, and then stitching again at the end to make sure it was good and secure. So I flipped my pumpkin over, decided where I wanted that stem to go, made sure it was in the right place, and then I put hot glue around the bottom of the stem and hot glue, you can see, around the wire of the stem, and then just laid it on there and held it in place until it was, holding and secure again. And here's my pumpkin. I'm so proud of myself. It was quite a challenge still working with that tubing, but it was worth it. I think it's just really pretty. And I'm going to show you a little few pictures of it. I hope you really enjoyed the video. I hope you'll give it a try, trying to, make your own pumpkin wreath, like this or some other way. Now I have another video coming soon where I've done another wreath using the same frame, and I'm thinking about maybe a third one. So it's kind of in my head. I'm trying to imagine how I want to do it, but if you'd like to see what else I've come up with, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you'll be notified when I release my new videos. Alright, I thank you for spending this time with me, and I'll be talking with you again real soon.